articles like Chris's bags, bowling balls, or badgers, please place them in the net bags in front of you. That'll keep them from bouncing around when we hit rough road, and believe me, we will be hitting some rough road. It's my specialty.
I know what we're alive.
Outstanding.
Hi,
hey, I could do that for the next 20 minutes.
I know
Welcome aboard.
One person who'll be coming to the show tonight who is a former Disney person, and so she will recognize that speech. Hi, I'm Thom Britton. That's Jonathan Pritchard. We do a lot of shows together. One of them is called The Seance. Right there, we playwiththedead.com for all of your seance and theatrical needs. We thought it'd be fun tonight since we're in quarantine, and I don't know about you. I've been very bored, so I've been looking for a lot to do. I've rewatched all of Community on Netflix, the entire darn thing, and something else came out. And The Tiger King, and everybody in the world seems to have watched that already. And now you're here. We have there's an old book Houdini published called A Magician Among the Spirits. We thought we'd do kind of a teardown. Some of it we'll just read like a little audio book. So, settle back, draw a bath, relax. We got you covered. Other parts of it, though, it's 4,000 pages. We're not doing a 12-hour broadcast. So it's like a telethon. Other parts of it we'll skim through, give you the highlights. Some of it's so dated, there's no point. And then my friend Jonathan Pritchard here will be able to demonstrate some of these principles. Some of it will give you an idea of how it works. Some of it Houdini will tell you how it works. Others, he's going to keep his secrets. How you doing, my friend? How's life treating you over there?
Doing way too well.
Yeah.
I'm very much like you, where I'm pretty introverted and happy with not seeing anybody for days on end. And then now that it's about month 3, I'm having fun that actually, I can get to speak to another human being, and I'm not just talking to Aglet, the mind-reading cat. So that's pretty good.
Okay, well, I'm going to dive right in. We're going to have a few people. If you're in chat, feel free to just say hello. There will be at certain points audience participation, etc. But you can also kind of drive the discussion. So as we're reading things, if certain, I sometimes am a bit of a history nut. And so I don't really know what is well known and what isn't. Things that to me, like the start and end dates of the Civil War in the U.S., to someone tuning in from the Netherlands would be like, wait, what century is that even? I don't know U.S. history that well. Remind me of that. Put that in chat and say, it'll let me know what to drill down on. Because I also don't want to do the opposite and start explaining, I'm just mansplaining to the world now, things that everyone learned in 4th grade, and I can't tell the difference between the common knowledge and uncommon knowledge.
Yeah.
Houdini's A Magician Among the Spirits was, like almost everything else Houdini did in life, to be taken with a grain of salt. Every second of his day was a publicity stunt. Every second of his day was managed. If he were alive today, he'd be an Instagram influencer, documenting every single second of every single minute of every single day. He wanted to be famous. He always managed his image. And every book he published seems to have been with the long goal of, when they all know my name 150 years from now, here's how they'll remember the great Harry Houdini. So when he's talking shite, when he's bagging on other performers, or even when he's praising other performers, grain of salt, he's at all times aware you're watching. And that's true with this book as well. I will tell you. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, there was just a really weird moment for me, like many years ago, where it hit me. I was like, Houdini was the Chris Angel of the early 1900s. Like, exactly the same game plan.
Give me some of the overlaps. So I only know Chris Angel from, he was on TV, and he's the kind of guy with it sounds like he's actually faking a Jersey accent. I understand he's not. With an the most unbelievable thing about him is that accent. But he looks like an aging glam rocker, in that they never know what to do with their hair after they go from long to short. It's always kind of weird and shaggy.
It's phenomenal.
And he's a publicity hound.
His look
has been,
his look has revamped time and time again, but it's always the same kind of brand. But it's just he understands publicity, how a character is perceived in mass broadcast. He's started as an escape artist, and that was just his goal, was to be the #1 magician. And I don't care what other magicians say. I don't care about sour grapes. I don't care if you don't like my character. You know who does like my character? Millions of paying fans.
Yeah.
And that's amazing. Yeah. So it was just, it's really a phenomenal execution of exactly the same playbook of publicity, awareness, everything you do with a mind for the goal of getting more butts in seats for the show.
And it seems that Houdini was very good. I'll put you on the spot a little bit. Would you describe Chris Angel as one of the best 10 magicians in the world, or is he just good at getting an audience? He has a niche, I guess, the kind way to say it. Like he's
right. Everybody has their skill.
Okay.
Right. And for him, I think the skill is being able to create a fan base. And that is a completely different skill than being really good at a magic technique.
Okay.
Right. So many performers focus on their craft more so than thinking about how can my craft serve my legacy.
And that's Houdini's focus. Once he gets famous, I think. So at first he's in the freak show, with my people, hates it, gets famous, and so as we go through this book, just keep that in the back of your mind. There's a camera in his mind always on him at all times. He already lives in the year 3000. Also wanted to mention this book is in the public domain, so I can recommend it and it costs you nothing. There's a link in the email we sent out for Project Gutenberg, but just Google Harry Houdini's. He didn't write a ton of books. There's right there, easy, but also A Magician Among the Spirits. And I would recommend, having read it now, and I read it years ago, having reread it this month for this show, it's good. I can tell you this, surprisingly well written for what I thought was going to be just what we in the Carney business call a slum book. Which is a hastily written treatise you sell for $10. It's my cookbook I tried super hard on, but I wrote a cookbook with the same
I have a book for $10.
Yeah, but we actually tried to make them not embarrassing. These slum books were things we would crap out just to rip you off because we're a million miles. There's no Instagram. You can't find us. We're down the road. Carney trash, right? Yep. I was expecting a lot more of that, and it seems that the good news about him always being so paranoid about his legacy makes him try hard because he's hoping this will live for 200 years. The first few chapters we'll go through rather quickly because most of them are The Magician Among the Spirits. This is Harry Houdini talking about the famous mediums of his day. A lot of them have not survived. You haven't heard of them. You've heard of Houdini and no one else. I'll start with his... Well, first of all, I would also like to dedicate it to Houdini's mom because as much as he played the mama's boy from Appleton, Wisconsin, it seems every historian agrees he genuinely loved his mother. It was, and really, really deeply had a great relationship with her his entire life. He dedicates this book to his mama. Oh, don't think he doesn't know how good that looks. But honestly, I think that's also from his heart. It seems to what we can pin on him. Yeah, he really, really, really loved the two women in his life, his wife and his mama. He
brought around everywhere all the time. They traveled together.
Yeah, a little too much maybe, but hey, Bess is in, whatever. There's a line to everything, but God bless a boy who loves his mama. He and Elvis would have got along great. He begins with a preface, and this is how I think a lot of skeptics look at spiritualism or any religion or really any theory. Gladly would I embrace spiritualism if it could prove its claims, but I am not willing to be deluded by the fraudulent impositions of so-called psychics or accept as sacred reality any of the evidence that has been placed before me thus far. So as James Randi once said, it's important to have an open mind, but not so open that your brain falls out.
Exactly. That could have been taken from the 70s, from the Jay Leno Tonight Show in the 90s, or on YouTube right now. That's exactly the same. It's exactly the same line, which to me is super interesting about why we're even doing this broadcast, is that it is still relevant, even though we're talking about people that lived in the late 1800s. The stuff that they were doing is still around in various forms today.
I mean, it's gonna so when we say there's a warning on the screen, not intended for children, we'll be discussing death. So we'll keep it around PG-13. Maybe the occasional curse word, not much. We won't drop a lot of F-bombs, I promise, and nothing too crazy. But we will be talking about actual doom and gloom and not characters in the X-Men comics, right? So I don't know what age. I don't have children. I rarely see them. I live in Boys Town for a reason, baby. I don't know what children look like anymore. I think they're like big dogs, if I'm not mistaken. But please, please, please make sure that you're considering the idea that isn't just, oh, my kids have heard curse words before. Yeah, but have they heard a really in-depth discussion of a plague during a quarantine? This might be something that would set off. I know I was a rather sensitive child. Still am a sensitive adult, if I'm being honest. It might have made me cry at 8, 9, 10 years old, whereas Jason Voorhees maniacally slashing at people with a knife and a hockey mask on was amazing. It depends on how much reality you've got. We're going to go beat by beat through this. We'll start with chapter 1 he calls, and credit where it's due, the founders of modern spiritualism. And this will be one of the few chapters that I'll read a chunk out of because I think this is important right off the bat. And using the book as a framework is a great device, but some of this book is really, really, really valuable. So this is the talking about the Fox sisters, which if you come see the Seance, the way the Seance works, it's I do the history, he does the mystery. So I go up for about 30-ish minutes, 40-ish minutes, and I do what I hope is a funny and entertaining TED Talk. I'm going to give you the context you need, explain the players, what spiritualism is. Houdini is dealing with a plague of rip-off con artists and shysters. So he has to be kind of mean because these a-holes are really screwing over Grandma and Grandpa. I don't live in that world. The average person to me who believes in spiritualism or believes in mediums is just a sweet Wiccan lady. She ain't hurting nobody with her religion. So I take a rather neutral tact and I stick with the history. I'm not saying ghosts exist or don't. I'm not saying your religious beliefs are great or stupid. I'm saying here's what spiritualism is, here's how it impacted our country, and I think it's got a cool history. So the Fox sisters I've been reading about I started writing the show about 6 months before I met Jonathan because I was looking for someone to do your part of the show. Finding you was the star of the show or a show I was writing. Like, I need a star. So I was there 6 months beforehand reading every book I could find on the Fox sisters. So here we go. Chapter 1, the founders of modern spiritualism. The story of modern spirit manifestations, so-called, dates from 1848 and the solitary farmhouse of John D. Fox and his wife in the village of Hydesville in New York State, and centers around their 2 little girls, Margaret, 8, and Kate, younger by a year and a half. Successfully exploited while still children, credited with occult power, becoming world famous as the Fox sisters, their record is, without exception, one of the most interesting in the history of spiritualism. John Fox and his wife appear to have been of the good, honest, not mentally keen type of farmer folk. Of the 2, the wife was the more, and he does quotes here, Houdini speaking, of the 2, the wife was the more simple-minded. And when the nervous, superstitious woman began to hear unusual noises which she could not account for and which seemed in some peculiar manner connected to her children, she concluded at once that the screams were unnatural and began to brood over the matter. Her fears increased with the persistent recurrence of the mysterious sounds, and before long, she took some of the neighbors into her confidence. They were as puzzled as the mother. The Fox home became an object of suspicion, and their neighborhood set itself the task of solving the mystery. With the increase of interest came a proportionate increase in the noises, which commenced to be known as rappings, and which, in spite of the positive denials by the children of any knowledge of how they were produced, regularly answered by an uncanny code questions asked the 2 girls. The possibility of duplicity in such children never occurred to anyone in Hydesville. Remember how young these girls are.
It was the 1800s.
Also, yes. With the result that the timid hint of a disembodied spirit soon became a theory. Someone asked the girls if a murder had ever been committed in the house. The ominous sounds of the code answered in the affirmative, and at once, to the eager investigators, the theory became a proven fact. And there flashed up in their minds the vision of a personality in the spirit world, endeavoring by crude means, which somewhat resembled telegraphy, I think it's telegraphy, but the telegraphy, to give human beings the benefit of its vaster knowledge. The whole affair in some obscure manner being connected with just 2 little girls. At this critical moment, a married daughter of John D. Fox and his wife came home to Hydesville for a visit. This is their older sister, 23 years older than little Margaret, of a very different type than either the father or the mother. She seemed to have grasped instantly the possibilities of the occult powers of her little sisters and to have taken complete command of the Fox family's affairs at once. Her first move was to organize a society of spiritualists and encourage crowds to come over to the house to see the children. Hydesville became famous almost overnight. News of the particular rappings spread with lightning-like rapidity and soon became absorbing topics of conversation, not only in the United States, but in England, France, Italy, and Germany as well. Women like Harriet Martineau and Elizabeth Barrett Browning were given their whole thought to it, and men of the strongest intellect and will to be caught in the meshes it had woven in contemporaneous thought. Hydesville became too small a field for the operations of Mrs. Fish, that's the oldest Fox sister, the older sister, very quickly, and soon she appears in Rochester with the girls, publicly exhibiting their feats to the great crowds for money. realizing from $100 to $150 a night in profits, 1800s, guys, in profits, which she pocketed. From Rochester, she took them to New York City, and later the girls made a tour of the United States, attracting the most prominent theologians, physicians, and professional men of all kinds, as well as great crowds everywhere. There is no record that the girls were ever under the management of Mrs. Fish after they left New York City, although she menaced them continually, and Margaret feared her as long as she lived. I can tell you that this is historically right in line with what we know. I gave you that little grain of salt at the beginning saying, hey, look, Houdini's going to manipulate every single thing. Well, two factors here. One, I don't think the story needs any tweaking. I think as it reads, sometimes when you tell history stories, you can just tell the story. Just modulate your voice a little bit, move around some, and bring a prop, and you're fine. And I think Houdini knows bingo when he sees it. But also, everyone back then would have probably known the beats of that story. He couldn't lie, and so he, had to stick to the truth. A fine tale well told, but it gives a lot of what we know of really happened. These two girls, remember, young. Picture 8-year-old children in the 1800s. No public library near Hydesville, New York. You had to drive in anywhere to really get any sort of education without your parents being very involved in it. And they were using such advanced techniques as tying apples to strings so that you could either have the wind blow. They were basically setting up ways for like a wind chime that would sort of make thumps that weren't normal to the farmhouse that everyone had grown up in and known their whole life. Or later, they would rig up little rapping techniques. This older sister, who I'll mention some of the dirt on the oldest sister, 23 years older than the younger sisters. She had been married, and I'm doing little finger quotes here because the marriage was never, and later on, if you keep reading that chapter, the marriage can easily be annulled or dissolved. So they didn't have to get a divorce because they never really actually got married. Might have had a child out of wedlock or been pregnant out of wedlock. Scandalous. Even today, that's a difficulty sometimes in our society. You're judged for it, much more so in Hydesville, much more so in the 1800s, and then much more so among that rural farmer family of very religious folk. So she fled town, and she and her husband were seen as much more cunning, kind of con artists. Now, that may be Houdini also judging her teenage pregnancy and applying to that a moral judgment that doesn't exist, but that was the image she had. What we do know is she saw dollar signs, took her little sisters under her wing, and made tracks for Rochester where the money was.
I know how to make money off this trick.
And the thing about overnight, like 2 million people per month making a pilgrimage to a house in the 1800s, full houses, the point we're making the seance. People think it's people holding hands around a table. Baby, it was way too... The Rolling Stones are not doing a show with 8 people around a table when they're 21 years old. They're selling out Madison Square Garden. They're part of the British invasion. Their first bar gigs had 15 or 20 people at them. Their 5th bar gig was standing room only. They quickly became the Rolling Stones. What's that?
Yeah, because they are limited by physics, weirdly, because if you do a one-on-one reading, you're going to need to charge basically $3,000 from that one person, or you could charge 3,000 people $1 and you made the same amount of money. It's a lot easier to get 1,000 people to give you $1 than to find the one person to give you 3,000.
And not everybody's church is performative either. So if I say I'm going to do a show in a church, my brother's a Baptist minister, that's perfectly normal there. You could do a magic show in the church. You could do a rock band in the church. They already do the music in the church is live and very
We're a community outreach center.
100%.
So have your community event here.
And but if your church is not of that bent, so say you're Amish or Muslim or Jewish, and you're like, no, it's very structured. You don't just get up there and the cantor's just going to start juggling? It makes. So if I say, well, why don't you come to the Vaudeville Theater and see this religious idea? Oh, that sounds like an appropriate venue, the Vaudeville Theater, not my temple. That would be weird. What? I've also
it's kind of neutral ground. It's just kind of like, everybody goes to the theater. Here you go.
I've also got this. This was sent to me by an author who's working on a kid's book for the Fox family about famous people. So this is one of the reproduction of one of the earliest treatises ever published. As it becomes popular, you got to sell merchandising where the real money from the seance is made. And so
the take homes,
a thin little volume. It probably would have been thicker. Modern printing technique can get a bit denser on the page. But I think the name right away gives you an idea of what they're making an argument. So this title's even written defensively. The entire book is written defensively. The entire book's written on a foot of almost, yeah, I know you think I'm full of crap, but hang on. It's got a real weird tone. I mean, the name of it is A Report of the Mysterious Noises Heard in the House of Mr. John D. Fox in Hydesville, Acadia, Wayne County, authenticated by the certificates and confirmed by the statement of the citizens at place and vicinity. 100% totally real, not made up. Oh, I can't hear you, Jonathan.
I'm trying to figure out how to turn off my ring light. Hang on, I'll be right back.
Okay. So what this is spiritualists, just early tracts. So if you're trying to convince someone that your religion isn't made up, if people are mocking you, belittling you, crapping on your religion, and you think, well, wait a minute, hang on here, this is a legitimate thing, my religion. Here's some convincing. So what they've done is they've gone through and collected the stories of everyone who, and you can see I've made notes, everyone who initially claims to have seen this. It starts with the dad, and it literally just says their certificate of, and there's just a list of names. This is Margaret Fox, Johnny Fox, blah, 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 so and so. These are neighbors and all this kind of stuff. And what's neat is they waited a few years, so the stories are quite practiced, which I enjoyed because it was neat, but you, even in reading it, you get the idea of like, she's told this story before. People have asked her about being, imagine I saw the Rolling Stones when they were 19, to go back to my previous analogy. I've dined out on that story quite a lot by the time I'm 50. I remember it like it was yesterday. I was right outside of London, and Mick Jagger took the stage. No one knew who he was back then.
I was one of 3 people in the audience. There were 2 people cool, in the audience. It was just me. It was a command performance.
Okay, now we'll skip through. I'm sorry. No, we're not skipping through the next. So the chapter 2 is the Davenport brothers, which now this is where Jonathan's people join the show in a way. Mm-hmm. The Davenport's 1854. No, go ahead. I'm sorry. There's going to be some overlap because there's a lag when we're talking. What point were you going to make?
Yeah. Well, I was just, it's super interesting that like the first magic book is The Discovery of Witchcraft by Reginald Scott back in the 1700s. So already for 100 years, we've had at least one magic book that explains, you know what, you don't need to burn the witches. They are tricks. However, there was a kind of a weird divergence that spiritualism was created without it being a magic trick kind of focus, right? So it's kind of this weird, comes up straight from the ingenuity of the minds of these children and then becomes this thing. And then it's on the radar of magicians and performers who recognize, oh, that's a cool show. Like that's an act that people are willing to pay for. And then you could see it as kind of a cynical thing, as going, even if it were a real thing happening, these performers go, yeah, I could perform that better.
Yeah.
It'll be more entertaining. So even if we don't believe in it as a thing, we could do it more effectively, more entertaining, and be more successful at it. All right, let's do it.
Yeah, the Fox Sisters weren't a good show. Keep that in mind. The Fox Sisters are 3 little girls. Now, one's in their 20s. The other 2 are quite young. No one mentions their charisma. No one mentions their stage presence. A preacher
They're
would go
so
up in front.
Not dynamic.
Yeah, a preacher would go up in front of them. And even the preacher isn't like a really interesting, like fire and brimstone kind of preacher. It's a rather dry. There's a certain style to that New England and mid-state New York, Hydesville sort of preachy style. Rather like a lecture on their religion. A lot of hymns, and a joke I make in the show is that hymns in the 1860s are like dirges. They're all kind of in the same right time. Then the
I'm
next
a sinner,
song,
we're gonna die,
Jesus
you're
on the
gonna
blood of the
die.
cross. And they're all on the blood of the cross, died. There's no heaven in these songs. He died for you, you're a piece of crap, pray to him. Like it's just a for 45 minutes. And don't picture Aretha Franklin getting up and tearing the place apart with a tambourine. No. Then these little girls go on stage and eke through a show. They're not trying to do a show. You paid your buck to get in the theater where normally it's the great Houdini or someone trying to be him, or at least singing a song that's got a melody to it. They're not trying to entertain you. They're trying to demonstrate proof of their religious belief. Then you go home, and that's a success. That's a sellout. People leave the halls going, wow, that was interesting, wasn't it? And the Davenport brothers are thinking, hold on a minute. I got a box.
Like a physics demonstration is more interesting than the presentation you're talking about. It's just that the nature of what it is that they're doing was so fascinating and interesting and meant a lot about what it means to be human and alive. That's what was driving the audiences, not the dynamism of the performance, because like you're saying, it wasn't a performance. It was more of a, here's an explanation of what is.
And performing it might have cheapened it. We have no reason to believe they weren't pious individuals, the Fox sisters. We have no reason to believe they weren't Christians. They weren't believers. So if they were to tart it up and whore it up too much, you can all picture a religious person being like, not my blessed sacred sacraments, you don't. So maybe they would have resisted if someone had told them, hey, kid, pick it up a bit. Pop it up with some jokes. Put a melody in your damn songs. Fire that preacher.
They were earnest. Yeah. Like that's a word you don't hear very often, because the 21st century irony and sarcasm is the lingua franca of the 21st century. But somebody who's actually genuinely earnest, you're like, oh, you sweet, simple child. What? So it's difficult to not look at the late 1800s with that same kind of nothing special. We got space phones that talk to outer space and, can predict the way, but, nothing's cool. You're like, what are you talking about? So, yeah, these folks were very earnest in what it was that they were going to see. So it didn't need to be a delightful distraction from the drudgery of being alive.
And it gives us, as historians trying to peer into their skull in the future, an idea of, had they actually been cynical con artists, the show would have been better.
A lot better.
So they admitted to being frauds. They published entire books on it, then recanted, then went back and forth. Whether you believe or ghosts or not on that side of the screen is entirely your affair. I'll not talk you into. I'll meet you where you are. I'll neither talk you into nor out of any deals. But it seems that I would not call into question their belief in an afterlife. I would not call into question their belief in a God. I would not call into question their belief in some sort of Bible or biblical phrases. And as a little bit of evidence I have, I would point to the show and go, well, the show would be not crap if they were just trying to hustle up dollars, especially when the ticket sales dip. They don't all of a sudden vanish an elephant. They got no moves. They keep just Jesus on the cross. I
know this one trick. Talk to the dead.
The Davenport brothers come along, and I'll read real quick two things, and then this is where. Okay, the Davenports are, I think, a stopgap between the two. Imagine someone who really did believe. Let's use modern religion. They really believe they can heal you. They believe prayer does something. That if I have cancer and I get on my knees and I genuflect or I face Mecca or I whatever, that I have an interventionist God in my religion. So I've now covered about 60-80% of American people. But I can do this one thing where it looks like a dove appears out of nowhere. Now, I believe what I'm saying is true, and I feel the deception is warranted. And this is the excuse given a lot of mostly Protestant preachers who get busted using a wire, get busted using plants, get busted. That person wasn't in a wheelchair when they walked in. You wheeled them up on stage and said, and now you will walk with the power of the Lord. And they got up. And the excuse is, yeah, but I believe that happens. I'm just demonstrating. The Davenports might be in that category. So I'll start with Wikipedia, then go back to our text. Just the dry facts on them. The Davenports begin in 1854. That's less than a decade after spiritualism had taken off in America. So 10 years in, and the Davenports were the first to go really big with it. Day 3, people were trying to rip off the Fox sisters and do it better. After stories of the Fox sisters, the Davenports started reporting similar occurrences. Their father took up managing his sons, and the group was joined by William Fay. So there's 4, the 2 Davenport brothers, a father, and William Fay, a Buffalo resident with an interest in conjuring. Now, they were undoubtedly, 3 of them, except for the father, 3 of them are undoubtedly magicians, conjurers, and vaudeville performers. Their shows introduced by a former Restoration Movement minister, Dr. J.B. Ferguson, a follower of spiritualism, who assured the audience that the brothers worked by spirit power rather than deceptive trickery. So the reference there to, one, verify, hey, look, I believe this stuff. I'm famous for believing this stuff. These boys are legit. This ain't no magic trick. Just because Houdini can do it also doesn't mean they are not doing it through mysterious means. But also, J.B. Ferguson brought the show. he brought some big dick energy to the broadcast. They picked him for two reasons. Now, Ferguson was apparently sincere in his belief that the Davenports possessed spiritual powers, and to his death would defend. I saw it every night. I would have noticed a trap. I would have noticed a dove or a sneak or a cheat. And I talked to those boys for hours on the train, for days on into the hotel. I lived with them on the circuit for years. He swore, yeah, that might be a trick, but they could also actually talk with ghosts. I saw that. The Davenport's most famous effect was the box illusion. And Jonathan demonstrates this in the show. The brothers are tied inside a box which contained musical instruments. And here Wikipedia does a bit of disservice. Elaborately tied by members from the audience. Are there a couple of men who have been Navy boys? Or Jonathan will say Boy Scouts, police officers. Who can tie a knot? Do you just have interesting weekends? Maybe you can tie a knot. Once the box was closed, the instruments would sound. Upon opening the box, the brothers were tied in positions which they had started the illusion. Those who witnessed the effect were made to believe supernatural forces had caused the trick to work. So if you've got me entirely handcuffed up, you close the box, you hear a guitar playing, you open the box, and I'm still tied up. Well, I didn't play the guitar. If the box is on stage and you're all standing around it, no one came in the box and played the guitar for me, that's proof. Houdini found out that the Davenports easily got rid of the ropes by rubbing oil on their hands, which is not how Jonathan does the trick. Nope. He may or may not have supernatural powers, people, but I can promise you I've never seen that man near a bottle of oil. All the months we've spent touring together.
But this is actually an interesting point, which is that Houdini is able to throw his fellow magician under the bus by not actually throwing them under the bus. So he is exposing the method by exposing a method, but not the method, which, to go down a weird rabbit hole, the masked magician from way back in the day who got lots of flack from magicians for exposing how tricks worked. Well, he wasn't exposing how tricks worked. He was duping the television station on how these tricks worked in the fake made-up way that he created to keep the actual method secret.
That is brilliant. And he fooled magicians. Magicians were playing along or were genuinely pissed at him?
They were genuinely pissed because it was outside their area of expertise, so they didn't have the nuanced appreciation that these were made up things, because normal magician methods are so wacky and convoluted that it was indistinguishable. But it was different enough that professionals who were using those illusions and tricks would still be able to perform them in their normal show by saying, if you've seen a television show, I think you all know the one I mean, you would have seen a gentleman who claims that it works this way.
Yes.
And as you can clearly see, that's not what we're doing here. So now wrap your mind around that. And then they continue. Right. So it's just this super cool meta con on the people who think that they are sharing the real secrets of magic. Now, that subtle detail was lost, and in season 2, they brought in somebody else who didn't care, and then they were actually just laying out the real work, right? So they were really doing that. So it might be at this point where Houdini is saying they rub oil on their hands. Like, well, if you brought up a whole committee of 10 people from the community and you're like, do you see anything weird? And they're like, it looks like your hands are covered in Crisco. Right. Like, yeah, let's not mention that. Right.
It totally worked for me, because I thought, until you said that right now, I thought they did it one way and you did it another. So you're telling me that no, there was never oil in anybody's hands.
Right. It would be highly unlikely if that were the real way of doing it, right? Because for their dude to be there for decades and go, no, I know that they're the real deal. Anybody could have been like, come on, how do you account for the oil? Or like, they just have dry skin.
I thought it was religious. Right? I thought maybe at one point they had an anointing. And the boys
right.
kind of got a little extra on there. But then I was thinking,
and now for the anointing, we will cover our bodies in pig grease. Here we go.
Praise Jesus. I was thinking of you, and I was like, dude, just for everyone, whoever comes to see the seance, I don't know either. I don't ask him. Magic shows and performances in general are more fun for me if I do not know the method. There's not a lot of mystery in this world. I know how iPhones work, for God's sakes. I like the fact that when I'm watching Jonathan on stage, I can appreciate it's also different every time for me because the volunteers change the show. So since I have to, as part of my job, sit through his part of his job and vice versa, what keeps it fresh for me is watching those two goofs tie him up and how badly or how well they sometimes do it, how he reacts, how he's a line for this, a line for that. Which way is he going to go on his Choose Your Own Adventure script that he's got? And what is genuine improv and what's like, nope, that looks like improv. That's not improv. He does that.
He said that 100 times.
And I thought, never once has anyone been like, dude, are you okay? Or because they wouldn't think it was the trick. They'd think like, are you nervous? Your hands are really wet. And so, so that's hilarious because it absolutely worked on me. I was like, what? Jonathan doesn't use oil. He must have spiritual powers. Houdini took some of the brothers' best acts and used them in his own performances. Everyone took the brothers' best acts and used them in their performances. Moreover, he discovered that during private performances, and this is my favorite thing, Houdini discovered that the Davenport brothers during private performances ran a string through the buttonholes of everyone in attendance, preventing any audience member from approaching their spirit cabinet. Their excuse, you want to sew us all together in a circle, right? And these were never 10 people on a table. Private performance, probably 25 people sitting in rows in a parlor somewhere at a rich person's house. You can't afford the Davenports. I can't afford the Davenports. It's a nice house. You stitched your audience together? It's necessary in order to prevent collusion. Because otherwise someone could sneak in the box and play my guitar. So I need to tape you all to your chair and super glue your hands together for your protection and safety.
To me, that is the most brilliant ploy ever.
I hope they can hear it back. I hope spiritualism is real and they can hear this right now. Bravo, boys. Bravo.
Yep. In order to make things more fair, you're actually setting in motion the techniques for deception. I love that. Oh, it's just so delicious.
And again, I'd be like, well, that's good science. Now we're all stuck in our seats, right? That
makes sense.
Sure.
I can't go up there,
That sucker
I'm tied
looks
to my
shifty.
chair.
I sure as heck wouldn't. Yeah, good idea, brothers. It's just, and that's why they're famous and I'm not. It's because they think about this stuff, and I just read it in books and go, that's a good idea. We'll skip through a few real quick because now we get to, so he starts with the big guns, your Fox sisters, your Davenport brothers. It's the same reason in the seance I start with them. They're the famous, and the Davenport brothers represent a whole lot of performers doing that. Now we get to Daniel Douglas Home, who is, so I just put in our notes to Jonathan that we're sharing on Google Docs. Fox Sisters ripoff, kind of didn't survive fame-wise. He was another, a lesser Davenport, probably way better than the Fox Sisters, but Daniel Douglas Home was yet another person who got on stage with charisma and did the old, hey, I'm getting a message from the beyond. And at the time, Houdini had to address him because remember John Edward? Not the vice president guy who got caught cheating. No, the guy who pretended to speak to the dead. Where's he now?
The other douchebag.
Don't know. He's probably got 500,000 Twitter followers. And gone. Same thing with Daniel Douglas Home. He was probably a big deal in the year this book was published. So that's chapter 3 done. Just you can read it if you want, but you're going to read the exact same thing the Davenports are doing and the Fox Sisters are doing. Chapter 4, Palladino. What a great name. So this is a person that's now adding table lifting to the public eye. Real quick from the book. Giuseppe Palladino, an Italian, has to her credit the successful deception of more philosophic and scientific men than any other known medium, being regarded by some as the most famous of them all, notwithstanding the fact that she seems to have made no pretense of producing the class of miracles claimed by D.D. Home before and many others. Materialization was rarely resorted to by her, and there was very little variety in her program from 1892 up until the time of her death in 1918. Evidently being content to astonish investigating scientists with the levitation and gyration of inanimate objects. Table lifting. What Jonathan talked about, I could do one trick. Table lifting.
That's it.
If you ever go see a real seance, that's the money shot for every single one of them. Boring, preachy, boring, kill me, God, why are they still? Are they singing a dirge? Then the table moves. And then everyone goes, proof, and they go home. And they charge $85 a piece for that. Table lifting is a juggling trick. Look it up. It's on Wikipedia. Talk about the master magician will show you how to do it. You practice it took me about 40 minutes. Now, I'm completely able-bodied. That'll help, too, if you got a bad knee or a weird ankle or, you aren't very strong. It ain't hard. And I could see how in a darkened room, if I'd bored you to death for an hour, it'd be really, 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 really cool. Have you ever seen table lifting in situ? Have you ever seen it actually? I'd love to go to a real seance and watch the money shot happen and watch everyone go, oh.
Yeah, there are a couple different approaches. And it's kind of like the longer you sit in silence, the quieter noise you're able to hear.
Yes.
So when you're just sitting through absolute monotony and it's actually kind of boring and nothing's happening, the smallest anything happening seems like a big deal. So using the complete, almost pedestrian method to make a thing happen seems like a huge deal. And then you can get into the territory that most everybody thinks of is, oh, there's stooges. There's people in on it. Now, that's the easy explanation for all this stuff.
True,
because
with a budget of $1 million, I just hire 50 people, and then I have an audience of 50, and the 50 fool the other 50.
Right.
Fourth grade me would have thought that's how it's done.
Exactly. So, yes, if you just fiat, and a plant or a Confederate is in play, then you can do even more dynamic demonstrations of table bumping and whatnot. But yeah, for the most part, it's a fairly subtle thing. And then you can, when you get the knack for it, the other people with their hands on the table who aren't aware of what table tipping is are actually helping you tip the table without being tipped off that they're helping tip the table.
Yeah, they're counterbalanced without knowing their counterbalance in a juggling term.
Right.
But I love the idea that, and this, we'll come back to Uri Geller later, but in the 70s there was a famous wannabe psychic, Uri Geller, whose rise to fame was the fact that he fooled one particular group of researchers who were real scientists at a real university, none of whom could do a card trick. So he fooled them all, as did Giuseppe Palladino. The same, so I'm sure he really read this book and thought, brilliant, I will do this. I don't know why he's Transylvanian. Brilliant, I want to be a Palladino. So that path to fame of she fooled more, philosophic and scientific are the same thing when Houdini was using these terms back then, than any other known medium, shows how, man, if they ain't got somebody in the room that can cut a woman in half, they are all just lambs to the slaughter, each and every one of them. I'm smart, yes. I have 8 degrees, yes. That was real. Hang on. Hang on, plea to ignorance. Hold on a second. Yeah, foul.
Yeah,
red card.
I've got lots of secondhand stories from Randy about exactly that, of scientists being the easiest people to fool because they're so smart they believe they can't be fooled.
And I think you've got to get to a point where the idea of I know enough to know what I don't know, because I know the mind of these people, right? I know the mind of Harry Houdini, and I just got fooled by the oil in the hands trick not being a trick. I am not surprised when you told me Harry Houdini was doing that. It makes perfect sense. But unlike most people walking down the street, I know more about that man and his life and his psychology and his brother and his mother and his wife and the Davenport brothers and their manager. I've read 8 or 10 books total between these two sets, these two camps, and I just got fooled live on YouTube. You saw me do it, of going, I thought there was just 2 ways to do the rope thing. I'm an idiot. And eventually knowing that idea of like, dude, don't let the fact that you know some shit give you confidence about other shit. Like, keep, remember thou art mortal. Someone needs to walk behind me with like somebody else's diploma. Remember thou art mortal. You couldn't get one of these. It's a master's degree.
Die.
Remember
you will
thou
die.
art mortal.
You are temporary.
Okay, so we're coming up on one of my favorite stories. I want to pause real quick because William Rader from wellattended.com helped us promote this event.
I love William.
We have no ads. This is not an ad. In that I'm just recommending, so he sent emails out to people on his mailing list, a lot of whom are magicians, hypnotists, people like us, burlesque performers, fire eaters, theater producers, to help get people to come see the show. And I told him as a the way podcasts do with like Audible.com or Squarespace. He didn't pay us any money. In fact, I pay him money when I sell tickets. So if you are a performer or ever thinking about doing a show, just make a note, well attended. It's nice to have two. It's William and his partner writing the code, and to be able to get someone on the phone and go, if in general, I've not had this problem, it works. But if ever something's down, to be able to text him and be like, do you know this is happening? And him text back on it is so powerful. But mostly thanks. Yep. He's a magician out in Denver who also started doing this. So he was, what do magicians and burlesque performers, magicians and me have in common? Ticket sales, live performance, visual medium. So there's stuff that's different from what the other ticketing sites were doing. That's what he saw was a
right, exactly. Because a lot of those ticketing sites are designed to help the ticketing site.
Agreed.
There are just certain things about the way as an event creator, they do things that are wacky to how you would think it should be. None of that is on Well Attended. It is more of how do I empower you to connect with your audience more effectively, more directly, and easier. It's just super cool that it's a performers booking platform built and maintained by performers for performers. Yeah. So it's exactly what you're looking for instead of, well, this platform is going to try to squeeze me for all I'm worth.
Every dime.
And my audience and
they really want
my
corporate money. They really want big trade shows, not your little 8,500 seat, 200 seat theater. So that's if you are a performer, make a note. If you're not, sorry, he did us a solid helping us promote. The least I can do is, and honestly, I'm
he's
for
a
sale.
Good guy.
It's actually software I use.
Yeah.
It's like trying to sell.
It's disgusting how nice he is.
It's like this microphone company called me and was like, we recommend. I'm like, dude, I paid $300 for that. Yes, I will sell your microphones. Okay, here's one of my favorites. Chapter 5. Anna Odelia Disdebar. I have no idea if that's the right accent. Anna Odelia Disdebar. I put in our notes in all caps. I blasted at Jonathan. This lady deserves more attention. This is insane. Super famous at the time, and I've already gone down a K-hole on this woman. Expect an hour long at some point on my YouTube channel about this person. Let me just read you a piece and then a couple of small facts, and this will give you the gist of the chapter. The coming and going of Anna Odelia Disdebar are mysteries, for there is no record of her birth and no trace of her death. Come on, mic drop. Are you kidding me? That's impossible now. Tough in the mid-1800s too, man. We had record offices. We had baptisms. We had births. We had circumcision. We had bris. Come on. Nothing. But the in-between time furnished material enough for an entire book rather than a single chapter, Houdini's words and I agree, and gave her sufficient opportunity to have it said of her that she was, quote, one of the most extraordinary fake mediums and mystery swindlers the world has ever known. The book does not give much on her. She's super famous and she's doing exactly the same as everyone else he's talking about, but she's really good at it. Things I've learned about her from other sources Houdini does not mention. One, she is brazen in her deception. I saw a guy the other day rob the 7-Eleven down the street from my house. Turns out he does it all the time. He walked in while I was walking out. He walks out right behind me. He just picked up something, put it in his jacket, and walked out the door. And walked. And the employee thought, minimum wage? Oh,
It's not worth it.
I go back in a week later, and the cops are hanging out. There's nothing going on. They just kind of ended up kind of pulling together, as police officers sometimes do, in the 7-Eleven, 6 or 7 of them, talking shop. It's kind of goofing off for a second. That employee is there and is kind of lamenting, kind of bitching about, and this is what I hear. I thought I just witnessed all the time this guy comes in here, puts stuff in his coat, and just walks out. What am I supposed to do? And the cops are like, well, yeah, don't stop him. You're right. It's not worth it for whatever. You don't get paid enough to get stabbed, shot, or even punched or bothered. But do call us afterwards for police. Oh, I should call you afterwards? They're like, yes, please. We are the police. We will.
Wait. Yeah. You work with this kind of thing? Like crimes? I would have never thought.
So I thought, well, that's how you rob a place. If you and I walked in and just picked up an Apple laptop and walked out of the store, would they chase us? I don't know. That's what this lady's doing with her deception. She is just blatantly saying bull and waiting on you to go, wait, isn't that horse shit, lady? What are you talking? Now, I'm making her sound like a hero. Convicted of fraud multiple times. not using her religion as deception, not prosecuted for doing, and some people get prosecuted for doing palm reading, and that's wrong. If you're doing palm reading for $10 and you believe it or don't, you can pretend to be, don't care. That's your First Amendment right now. No, just break into your house and steal your stuff. Commit actual like bank fraud, draft fraud, nothing to do with spiritualism, just a fraud. Also, on
misrepresenting herself as a totally different person,
like
then
welfare
take money
fraud
out of a bank.
Bernie Madoff or something. Yeah, okay. Also, rape. Not often do the females get, now with the religious and the culty, a lot of guys with acoustic guitars with my actual beard and hair, who are in a bunker somewhere with a lot of probably 2 young girls in white dresses. Women, I can't yet convicted, legitimate, or was someone attacking her that way? She's been accused of and stood in court accused of rape. I can find no other details yet. But I want to know that story, and like, was it a rival, yelling wolf to trap her, to embarrass her, or did she do it?
Right, or got caught in flagrante delicto, and then she put the whammy on me. I was powerless to say no.
Maybe caught with another woman, and the other woman didn't want to be branded a pervert, and was like, "What? No, this was not a big yeah." Who knows? But this is chapter 5 of Houdini's book, which again, if you're joining late in the stream, first of all, leave this up so you can watch the whole thing if you want. But also you can get it for free. So chapter 5 will give you a primer on this person that I just found so far I can't find a really proper academic source for. But man, the basic stories of her are just, I'd say fascinating the same way, use a monster from history. As you talk about Nathaniel Bedford Forrest from the Civil War. That's the founder of the KKK. So when I say fascinating, I don't mean a hero. I mean a fascinating. Hitler, Pol Pot, Stalin, fascinating. Maybe the same.
Not a North Star of moral compass, dude.
In fact, reverse that and you've got a pretty good guide.
Sail away from that star, you'll be fine.
Ask yourself, what's the exact freaking opposite of what she would do? Try that. Okay, so Jonathan has a demonstration for you. Let me prime this. This is very much like our show now. Chapter 6 is Dr. Slade and his spirit slates. And I'm going to, if you don't mind, big up my partner here. If you have not seen this done, pay attention. It is cool. So spirit slates are, well, they're evidence. And you made this point to me one time in a conversation. I don't know if it's a common point you made or something you read, but you mentioned, we're talking about ectoplasm, which we'll get to later also.
Yep.
That with what you do, mentalism is what he does. So mind reading as a theatrical thing. It's think of a number, it's 8, right? It's 8. Okay, now think of a card, 3 of clubs. And now you try to add pieces to make that interesting for an hour and, odds and mathematics and stuff. And so, but essentially you're kind of packaging the same idea, and then you get into maybe bending things with your mind or whatever. But that idea of like, I can just predict the future. Well, that's pretty boring once you've told me the lottery numbers, unless you could come up with some cool plot devices. Or if you go, dove, and people go, well, that wasn't a magic. That dove actually was a spirit dove. What do they call it in Harry Potter? It was your Patronus.
Patronus, yeah.
Patronus. Yeah. A manifestation is a whole other level of proof. So spirit writing, and this is, and now I'm realizing after you told me the oil thing, so he talks about this Dr. Slade, spirit slates. Then in the very next chapter, slate writing and other methods, he goes through, and now I'm assuming it's like the oil on the hands. He goes through all the different methods of how they did it. So now I'm going to read it with a big grain of salt.
Part of it, and that's the thing, is part of it is going to be the stuff that only mediums used that weren't really magicians' methods. Okay, we can really expose that without having any chagrin from the magicians community, versus, okay, they're tiptoeing into our territory, so what kind of wacky made-up thing? So it's all truth and made up, all rolled together. So the way I've heard it explained is kind of in context of, well, is mind reading real? Right? It's kind of, okay, are these methods real? It's kind of like Max Maven is just a giant in the mentalism community and in the magic world. He's phenomenal. And he explained, just perfect. And he explained it kind of this way, saying that it's like wrestling. It's just like wrestling, WWE.
Oh, professional
Right?
wrestling. Okay.
Professional wrestling, right? Because there are the people on either side of the bell curve of believability, where there are the people who are all in. Like they are there for it. They know that this guy hates that guy and this is the feud that's been running for years and they're all in. Then on the other side, you've got people like it's all fake, it's all made up. There's, they're just running the script and then they're getting paid from the same company. Who cares? Then there's people in the middle who go, yeah, I don't think he's a good enough actor to act that angry at the other guy. So I think he actually doesn't like that dude. And I don't think that arms are supposed to bend that way.
They
so
definitely do qualify as athletes.
Probably
in my
like
opinion.
really in pain. So there's a blend of made up and real, and the job of the audience is just to enjoy it, right? So I think that's a lot of what you've got here is these methods could probably work. A lot of them probably were the methods used. They might also have some let's protect our boys trade secrets rolled in there to keep the workers happy who weren't trying to claim supernatural powers. So yeah, it's just a whole hodgepodge.
Gotcha. Real quick, so I'm gonna put you on the spot.
Yep.
First of all, I'm gonna give you okay. So you're now in a one shot, and I've got Mind Reader University by your ear because I want you to tell people first of all your book, because that's actually something that everybody can use, not just performers. And then if you don't mind, could you do a demonstration of spirit slates for everyone? Can you dance, Monkey? Dance for us, Monkey.
Absolutely.
Please.
It's the only way I know how to have dinner is to dance for it. So my book is Think Like a Mind Reader, and this was written because for a decade I was traveling the world and entertaining college students. Like that was my number one market, was traveling around and entertaining college kids. So I would do my mind reading show and then have an autograph line afterwards, and people like they would just come up to me and just go, I can't imagine like doing what you do. And I eventually realized that they meant that in two ways. Kind of the first way was, okay, how do you do those tricks? That's the real deal, right? Like, because there's no way that that's a trick. And I'm like, well, that means it's just a really good trick. Like if if it looked like a trick, it wouldn't be all that good of a trick. So thank you. I appreciate that compliment. The second way was, most people are operating on the average standard social narrative of I've got to study in kindergarten to get into the good middle school, to get good high school grades, to get into a good college, to then get a good job where I'll retire with a gold watch and die. Right? Like that's the life trajectory from day one. And then they're in the middle of their college experience, and then here comes this just blazing comet that just rips right through that narrative and go, yeah, you don't, I have a living reading minds. Like that's my job. So we start getting into just really wacky conversations, and the same 20 topics kept coming up about, well, you have to be outgoing, right? Like you're just naturally gregarious. Like not at all. I'm actually quite naturally introverted and prefer not talking to people. I just learned how to be outgoing. Well, yeah, but you're just naturally confident. Oh, not at all, right? So all the things that I've had to work on myself to grow up in a single wide trailer on a dirt road in the mountains of North Carolina to then be a world traveling entertainer, I put all of it into the book. So that's what the book is about. And you can use the book to read your friends' minds. So the book is the method to a mind reading trick that you can learn to do on your friends. And then meta, while you're learning to do the mind reading trick, you're learning to be a better communicator, which helps you in every part of life. So that's the hard sell on the book. So that's it. Now, Spirit slates from Dr. Slade, and Slade actually spent a lot of time outside of Louisville, Kentucky. So there's a small theater called J&B Magic Shop Theater that I was the first headliner there. Opening night, I was the headliner there. I did the Spirit Slates routine, and Brent, the guy who founded and runs the theater, goes, Slade, he was local to around here, and this was the opera house where people would perform. You probably just did the Spirit Slates in the place where they could have been born. So that was just kind of a cool piece of history. So a little bit of context for this is that Thomas Bradford is just a phenomenal figure in spiritualism as a religion, less as a person who was trying to do demonstrations for an audience. He was more of a believer who was, a man of science, and we're going to prove this is real. And Tom can go on for hours about the ins and outs of Thomas Bradford. So the conceit is that Tom talks about Thomas Bradford in the TED part of the Seance, and then I loop that in through trying to get in touch with Thomas Bradford. So the detail is that these are what slates are. So you guys have a head start. But basically, these were the iPad version 0 of the 1800s, early 1900s. So if you went to school back then, you could write on it with chalk, erase it, and then do the next math problem. So this was kind of a notepad and just general all-purpose communication device. So these would have been familiar to anybody and everybody in the time where this was popular. Mentalists and magicians like me keep doing it, even though nobody knows what these are, because this is the trick you do. So there's absolutely no actual relevance whatsoever. But this is what slates are. All right. So the idea is that you put them together and then put a piece of chalk inside, and you can put them down on the table or hold on to them like this, have somebody hold on to them. Then you go through the whole ritual of trying to reach out to the spirit. And you could, as the medium, say, we're trying to contact the spirit of Thomas Bradford. Okay, we contacted him. He says he's great. Okay, good night. Give me your $10. Or like that wouldn't be enough proof. So the spirit slates is that you would be able to show that Thomas Bradford is here and made himself known by actually writing his name down on the spirit slates. So that's kind of the effect, without a lot of the wrappings of presentation or the church service. But that's kind of it, that there's no writing, and then the spirits write something on there because I didn't write it. You saw me. I was talking to you the whole time. So that is a way of demonstrating that, we actually did the thing we said we could do, which is contact the dead. Because let's work through this logically. You didn't write it on there. Nobody wrote it on there. Therefore, it must be active proof of spirits writing it on there. So that's spirit slates.
And so as someone who's seen him do this, I don't know, 50 times more. I can tell you that. So they're holding the slates for a long time. Like he says, okay, he makes jokes about this is the thing you'd carry to school, blah, blah. Hold these for me. And then there's a whole other trick involved where we're contacting the dead and some stuff's happening. Imagine just like things going bump around the theater, or a candle flies off the mantle, right? Oh my God, look at that. Then at the end of it, the denouement is look there, and Thomas Bradford's given that person a message. And so seeing it in the situation and watching the audience volunteers, you get two reactions. One is the way I would react, which is like, I don't think it was a ghost, but that's a super creepy, cool trick. And you see him just kind of smile because you're like, how did you, wait, stop, hang on. So it's like a really cool, that was my card, how did it get in your shoe, right? Like, wait, what? Hang on, hold on. But then also, I've seen people damn near drop your expensive toys because they're like, witch, burn him. Not quite, but they're like, they can't. They're take him. They kind of back away, like, whoa.
Yeah, because that person is getting, because they're getting an experience that nobody else in the audience can ever have, because they're the only person in the entire theater who is holding them with their hands, right? They're like, he didn't do anything. Nothing happened. Nothing was done to these, and now they're different.
You said, did you feel anything? And then that was usually your motivation in the way he does the scripting. You know, did you feel anything happen there? So that happened, this happened, and then did those slates, anything happen there? And one lady goes, they kind of moved. And you're like, so in her mind, whether they moved or not, who knows what happened there? But when he reveals it, she's like, she felt a ghost moving the chalk is the roller coaster she just went on. And you're like, yeah, you're welcome. Go tell your friends. Best $30 you ever spent, lady. Like, you will tell that story until the day you die. And more importantly, if she kind of believes in ghosts, she'll be like, no, I went to this show and I thought it was just two guys just kind of goofing and having fun. It was entertaining, but then I felt the chalk. But of course you did. Yes. Bless you. Of course you did. If you want to come see the seance, and I got a free gift for you guys, but this is not the screen I want you to see. That's the screen I want you to see. Assuming the world reopens, this is where we'll be performing. If you want to come to Chicago, Milwaukee, that's almost half sold out. So people do want to go to theater. We're doing 3 dates in Detroit, and outside Detroit, in Warren, Michigan. Thursday, you'll be pretty safe waiting a little while. Friday and Saturday, the reason we've added a third date is because every year Detroit treats us really, really, really well. And I've got a free gift also for you guys. If I can stop hitting the wrong button, forgive me. Let me go back up here. I've got a free gift for everyone also. I was watching Last Week Tonight, which is the John, whatever his name is.
John Oliver?
Thank you. So I was going to say John Edwards, not his show. John Oliver's show. He mentioned that the post office is having difficulty, and I like the post office as a guy who enjoys things that are older than America. The post office and the Marine Corps are both older than America. Both about a year before the Declaration of Independence. Hang on one second. Sorry, whiskey voice. And so I bought stamps, and I'm giving away postcards. And these in the U.S. only, I'm sorry, stamp prices are very different internationally. So this is what you need. Right at the bottom there, you see freakshowtell.com/postcard. And that's a hidden URL for now. I'll eventually post this on social media, but you guys are watching us do this for an hour, and I'll tell you, it's as much fun for me as it is for you guys. Hopefully you're having fun. I'm having a blast hanging out with my friend and watching him perform and telling stories. And this is exactly what they look like. There's the back, which is a sort of a design. You can see it looks sort of vintage. And then also, and I do my own graphic design for better or worse. And a picture of Christine and I doing the Tesla coil. My main show is very science heavy. So that's me demonstrating a Tesla coil. And then I've got kind of the text. And this is all done in sort of, it's not terribly good graphic design, because in the 1930s it wouldn't have been. And that's kind of what I'm aping here with the text design down below. It explains what we're doing. That's it. There's a form there you fill out, and then be patient. The stamps I bought from the U.S. Postal Service are not even here yet. I don't know how long those take. When they get here, I got to copy and paste. I got to print Avery labels. I got to stick them on. I got 100 of these. Assuming all 100 go, it's going to take me a minute. I have nothing else to do, but it's going to take me a minute. Then I'm not going to rush to get them into the mailbox. This is not essential services. I'm not mailing out prescriptions to my patients here. I'm mailing out a fun little thing. But if you do sit patiently and wait, when they arrive, hit me up somewhere, tag me in something, hashtag me, message me. I do want to know when they've gotten to you, or if they get there, I can send another one if they don't. If you haven't gotten anything in the mail post 1997, it's a real cool feeling when it's not a bill. I had a grandmother that sent birthday cards every year, and it was really neat, like when she was still around, like post 2000. To be like, oh, wow, the only piece of mail I've gotten that wasn't someone wanting a piece of me, either buy my bullshit or pay me for the thing you've already bought. So, yeah, those are free. You have to do nothing. I bought 1,000 of these. There's going to be 4 different ones for my VIP kit. Printing is not happening right now. And I happen to have some Avery labels. And so I spent, $35 for 100 postage stamps. That's my gift to you and to the American Postal Service. It ain't going to bail them out, but every little bit will kind of help.
Yep. And you'll be doing him a huge service and giving him something to do
This is not
other
untrue.
than stare at the wall.
Sitting him monotonously putting, oh, I know this person, I don't know who this person is, 100 times does not sound like the worst thing in the world right now. I might just start a sweatshop in my living room.
A delightful distraction.
It's fun. Spirit photography. Chapter 8 is spirit photography. And this is where, again, we're going to come right back to you talking about the JREF prize. But there can be no, but this is also Houdini. So the prism we're putting it through. Here's how we're looking at Houdini's view on spiritualism. It is a plague and a pestilence. These are con men and accused rapists in one lady's case, who is stealing from everybody. They're everywhere. They're a scourge, like rats on a ship. I don't live in that world. Jonathan and I can be quite magnanimous and kind to our friends who practice the real spiritualism. You ain't hurting nobody. What are you charging? Same money we're charging? You're not ripping off some little old lady for tens of thousands. You charge $50 to come see a real seance and you tip a table a little bit. Hey, man, if your customers are happy, that's your freedom of religion. Keep in mind that I live in a world post-Houdini, shutting down all the really bad elements and leaving me only the kind and beautiful Wiccans and spiritualists and people who believe in fairies and ghosts and Bigfoot and cryptids. And yes, awesome. Welcome everyone into the tent. However, there can be no better evidence of rottenness in the whole structure than the fact for upwards of 40 years there have been standing offers of money in amounts ranging from $500 to $5,000 in the 1900s for a single case of so-called phenomena which could be proven actually psychic. Knowing the character of mediums as do I claim if proof were possible, there is not a single medium, including spirit photographers, who would not have jumped at the chance to win such a prize. Spirit photography looks exactly like that. This is a slate laid out with Houdini, and you pick the people who go in around you, and it was a double exposure. Now in the era of Photoshop, this is not impressive at all. In fact, I can, in zoom backgrounds, I can be wherever I want on the deck of the Starship Enterprise with simple zoom backgrounds we've all now at this point probably used. Spirit photography, then again, like those slates though, if you're looking for something a bit more than like, I'm feeling your grandmother in the room. She says, what is the joke you always do? She says, I love you. Yes, that's your grandmother. She says she loves you. So this is just this idea, but it starts what's called now the JREF prize. And I'm going to let you explain that because, boy, do you know that intimately.
Yeah, so there's a guy by the name of James Randi.
Bless
and yeah, and I met him in college and then had the chutzpah to actually ask for a job, and he gave it to me. So that was awesome. And my job was to help manage the challenge that he had. So the idea is that there are people who claim to have these abilities, like talking to dead people. Okay, prove it. Show us that you can do this thing you're claiming to do. I'm not saying that you can do it. You're the one claiming to do it. And now you're fighting me on actually doing the thing you started saying you could do. So it was more of an opportunity to actually hold people to task who claimed to be able to do this thing and yet never do it. So James Randi started with, I think it was like $5,000 or a $10,000 check as the challenge. Say, okay, if you claim to be able to do something like this, then show me in a way that doesn't preclude, that doesn't allow for trickery. Then here it is. It's right here. And then a private sponsor was like, yeah, $10,000 is good, but let's have $1 million. I like your work anyway, so I'm going to donate the money to create this as $1 million challenge.
Yeah, because
and
$500 in 1920 was $1 million. It was life-changing money. It was almost FU money.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. A substantial sum.
Updating
not just peanuts, right. But just like, oh my goodness, this would be life-changing. Yeah, exactly.
Because if you can prove it turns metaphysics into physics. If you can actually prove there's ghosts, then suddenly Brian Cox, a professor at Cambridge, or Professor Richard Dawkins, or a billion others, are suddenly very interested in that Ouija board.
Right, exactly. Because it's not just a religion that you have to leave behind truth and reason, you are now in the realm of actual reality.
Yeah.
Right. So it would completely overhaul everything that we know about how the world works if you could have one dead person talk back to you.
And it's completely logical. Houdini makes this point of like, okay, you're saying that you can hold a plate, a photographic film back then's a plate, you put it in the camera, the hood, everybody cheese, click, shutter, take it out, develop it. Okay. I can take this plate, pretend this is just a photographic plate, hold it to my head, and then you say like Abraham Lincoln, and I just think Abraham Lincoln, and then when we take a photo with this photographic film, Abraham Lincoln will be on there. That's your claim. Okay, I can do that also with a thing called Photoshop. So what we have to do is eliminate Photoshop, as Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, who we'll talk about next. You have to eliminate everything possible before you start accepting the wacky and the insane. So I can fake it. So then what if we did this, Jonathan? You claim you can do this. What if I brought the plates? I bought them. I'm not going to tell you where. So I know they're not tampered with. I'll then hold them next to your head. You don't touch them. Then I'll put them in my camera I brought from home. I'll take a photo of you or whatever. That part really doesn't matter. An apple, whatever you choose for the photo. Then I will immediately take those plates, put them in a briefcase. I will take them to some place you've never heard of and develop them. And while that will not convince the whole world you're not full of crap, I will certainly be convinced you are not full of crap. That is absolutely an experiment I would back. And now you start writing double blind in the way science would work, etc.
Right.
So the psychic on the other side, it's not an adversarial relationship. It's them going, yeah, no, you're right. That would definitely mean I could do it. That would be a legitimate test. And then to date, they've all failed at a test they helped design.
Right. And there's a second abstract layer to it, much in the same way as the oily hands, which is if you make the test too strict, a charlatan would recognize that there's no wiggle room and they have no hope of doing their tricky work because they think they're smarter than you in magic terms, right? So they won't say yes to an actually strict demonstration. So the double trick is being able to design a test in such a way that the charlatan believes they're capable of executing the con while being in a situation or a context where you're catching them in the act of doing it.
So I've got another plate hidden under my jacket that has Abraham Lincoln on it, and I'm just waiting on him to turn his back so I can switch those plates real quick.
Right.
And so I think I can get over on you if I'm like, oh, no, all photographic plates look the same, buddy. I'm switching your iPhone 11 for my iPhone 11, and I'm blowing your mind. Right.
Well, there's one that comes to mind that was just so fascinating to me, which is a common claim from Russia and kind of that part of the world is being able to read with the fingertips. That your fingertips are so sensitive that you can read, and the proof is that you blindfold yourself so that you can read with your fingertips. But then that's not enough. So then they build a kind of a box with essentially the same dimensions as this green kind of mat that's on my coffee table. All right. So it's about this big, and then it's a box. So then you could put $1 way at the foot of the box, and then they would put their arms in, and then while blindfolded could read the serial number on the dollars. You're going, okay, that's pretty good, right?
Yeah.
So that was one that was perfect because Randy, the genius that he is, he's literally won the MacArthur Genius Grant.
Yes.
So he is an award-winning genius with credentials.
A validated
right? So
genius.
He got this. Yeah. So he built the box, and the demonstration was done on video so that there was just video record, and to make sure that there could be no trickery, then there were 2 cameras so that you would notice any jumps in time if if Randy tried to doctor the footage to make her look bad.
Which will be a claim someone will say if you say I'm not real. I'll go, no, you're not real. What's not real is you in this scenario, good sir.
Yeah, no, your video showing me losing is doctored footage.
I did it. Your video's bullcrap.
Exactly. So having 2 video cameras presents more proof, right? So there's that. So then she gets blindfolded, puts her hands in the box, and does the whole 9 yards, and is able to do the thing, right? So she demonstrates the ability to read with her fingertips, right? But here's the thing, is that the black plastic box is actually clear acrylic with red film on the inside and green film on the outside. So it appears as though it is black to visible light, yet is transparent to infrared.
Ooh.
So that camera is set to infrared. That camera is set to visible light spectrum. So you can sync them up, and you can see her hands go into the box, move the dollar bill to the edge of the box where she's looking down in her blindfold, just straight reading the numbers off, and then keeping her elbow very still, just puts it back. Right? So since the box is hiding that movement, she can bring it out and look at it and put it right back. Right?
How many people do you think she fooled before that? Millions, thousands?
Oh, everybody, right? Yeah. So you have to design the test in a way that makes them feel like they're safe doing the thing.
Right. And if they were legitimate, it would have caught nothing. It would have been further proof for her. If she just guessed numbers, you'd have been like, well, I guess that's also proof on her claim. I'm saying she guessed. If we test her 9 times at a certain point, this isn't guessing. You're not guessing serial numbers off a dollar bill.
Exactly. So in no way does proof prevent you from doing the thing you claim to do.
Right.
It would have only further reinforced the authenticity of your skill.
It's a test, not a trap.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. It's not a gotcha. Only if you're trying to lie to me, is it? Yeah.
Okay, Chapter 9. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. If you eliminate every possibility, whatever's left, no matter how implausible, must be the solution. And that's exactly how Sir Arthur Conan Doyle thinks, and it's not true. Sherlock Holmes is not based on logic. If you eliminate every possibility, whatever's left is, sure, could be Bigfoot. Also, maybe you don't know all the gorillas. Maybe there's actually something you don't. How do you eliminate every possibility except aliens? Really? LSD in your drink was eliminated? Aneurysm was eliminated? Stroke was eliminated? A big crowd of people maybe makes it a little more, oh, sure, the Maria appeared in Lourdes and 1 million people saw her. Maybe there's another explanation. That's where we get at the core of this. That's why Sherlock Holmes is a fictional character. But if you start with that premise of, I'm so smart that I can obviously know everything logical, therefore that must be spirits and psychics. That's Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, and he wasn't dumb. To be fair, his brain usually worked quite well in these scenarios. Walk into the store, reading the newspaper, writing worldwide bestsellers. He killed the character and was brought back through public demand. They rebooted him on the CW. They couldn't take the guy out of this major... He was very successful because he could trust his intellect. He glided effortlessly through a world using that as his keel. It just isn't quite as effective. Now, he also, I think, was optimistic with a big heart. I mean, he's coming from a good place because this guy, look, I know we have people who tune in who believe in mediums and seances, but people can read with their fingertips. And I'm not shitting on you, man. That's perfectly fine. That's perfectly fine. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle believed in everything. What do you have? What do you got? Go make something up right now. I believe it. Whatever you were going to say, I believe it. Werewolves, yes. Bigfoot, sure. Fairies. He toured the country arguing for fairies that are the dumbest, clearest evidence of just putting a children's illustration in front of the camera. Look, there's a fairy right there. See the fairy, everybody? Look, it's a bird. Like, right there is a fairy. They look like garbage.
It was total practical effect.
Yeah,
like, it wasn't a camera, let's do this in the dark room thing. It was somebody painted fairies, cut them out, and then put them in some bushes, and that was the proof.
And yet, and I like to make this point when I talk about this on stage, he and Harry Houdini were dear friends. Their relationship was complicated, although I'll argue every relationship with Houdini was complicated. The man was complicated. He seems to have been a bit of a pain in the ass a lot of times. But they were, at times, the best of friends. And I think we've lost that in the era of Facebook. The idea that we could sit down. We discovered this when we first did the Seance. It was at a theater I owned here in Chicago. We're doing it, and we did it. Halloween was on like a Friday, so we did Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, 3 shows a night, because might as well. 'Tis the season. Let's do this. And they'd sell randomly. Like Wednesday, like midnight would be sold out, and then 8 p.m. would have 12 people, and 10 p.m. had like 30 people. It was an 80-seat theater.
It was so weird.
And so we'd be like, what? It's Friday at 10, but the midnight's sold out, and the 8's sold out, but 10's half sold? It was wonky. New theater also was a problem. The theater wasn't helping us promote much either, which was also me, so I was doing everything I could. One night, we're looking out like actors do from backstage, checking the house. And I see a couple of young ladies in the front row, and one is doing tarot card readings for her friend. And I immediately thought, like, ooh, I wonder how that plays in Peoria. We're going to go on stage and take a rather neutral tact. But I think if you're really reading between the lines of the subtext, you get an idea we're doing a historical presentation. You think a seance is one thing. Hang on, it's actually this. This is what it would look like. Here's a recreation. Thank you. Happy Halloween. Isn't it fun to play pretend? Afterwards, we always make a point, if you come to any of our shows, and you should, if you come to any of our shows, we make a point of hanging out afterwards, shaking hands, high fives. 1, it's fun. 2, it's just good customer service. I just like doing it. You gave me money. You gave me your time. I gave you a show. Thank you. Drive safely. See you later. That young lady specifically, I was like, how did you like the show? Not a pointed question I usually ask. I'm not usually leading the witness. And she made the point that she loved it, hilarious, great show, wonderful. I go, I saw you doing tarot cards. I was specifically interested in you, and now I'm really, badgering this woman. I go, are you a believer? And she made the point of yes, and so I hate the people you're talking about more than you do, I'd argue. They're leveraging my religion. So imagine if you're Catholic and hear what these priests have been doing. Now you're even more pissed than the regular crowd by 5%. They've been abusing children, and also they've been hiding behind my dear faith. That's how she felt about it. We don't talk about sweet little ladies who do tarot card readings for their friends in the front row. We leave them alone. They are not fair game. We go after the shysters, the con men, the a-holes. And in the age of Facebook, we've forgotten that young lady and I could have gone and had coffee. If I drank and she drank, we could have gone and had a beer. So Houdini is on. He shut this shit down. He went on a rampage against these psychics, and one of his dearest friends believed in every single thing. And while Houdini didn't drink, I can imagine them having tea together, hanging out, having coffee, having sandwiches, and spirited debate between them. You fool! How can you not believe? You fool! How can you believe everything? Fairies? Really? Fairies? You wrote Sherlock Holmes. You do miracles every night. How do you not think they exist? And then they went and had what? Went saw film. Yep. I like that lesson from their life. It was complicated and hard, but you ain't got to agree with every single thing if the other person isn't hurting anyone with their beliefs. Leave them alone. Right. Let them believe some wackadoo. Who cares? Who are they bother?
Yes, I don't even agree with myself most days. It's like I'm the asshole to myself. Like, what am I going to do? Unfriend me?
Yeah.
Like, I'm stuck with me, so... All right, let's hang out.
Now, friends who are ardent skeptics who wish we took a harder tack in the show, and I'm like, no, I'm an entertainer first, and I'll meet you where you're at. So what I want to show you is a historic recreation of a thing you believe happens in your religion. Cool, I'm okay with that. That's fine. The same way if I went to the Vatican, I'd expect one of the gift shops to have books on the history of the paintings. Like, that's the part we can all agree on. That's a kick-ass painting of a naked dude. That's awesome. The one thing we can all, there's the Venn diagram. We all love kick-ass paintings of naked dudes. Come on, people. So you got to kind of, meet them at that where the rubber meets the road. But also I make that point of like, this ain't Houdini's day. This isn't Uri Geller. There are people who do real harm. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle wasn't. He was just traveling around the country, arguably enabling, sure, but not directly. And so he could be friends with a guy who really hated spiritualists and really hated the con men in them. Chapter 10 is Why Ectoplasm. That's literally the name of it. Why Ectoplasm. In which Houdini just kind of talks about them now trying to just every year you got to do something bigger and better. Every year we add something to the show. if you come out and see the seance again, a lot of it's unchanged. It's history. It's rather static, at least until I get finished with this machine over in the corner. Then it's all going to change. But for the moment, I'm talking about things that happen. It's going to be the same story of the Fox sisters, the Davenport brothers, the big players of the big players. Jonathan is hitting sort of the greatest hits of the medium. So you're going to see spirit slates, and if not spirit slates, then a spirit cabinet. If not spirit cabinet, spirit photography. These are the big beats of what he wants to do. Ectoplasm is just the spiritualist now in year 30, in year 40, in year 50. What do you got? What's new? What I saw that last, the table tips. I don't care about the table tipping. Give me the new stuff, people. So that's why ectoplasm. Chapter 11, the byproducts of spiritualism. And this makes, okay, here. It has come to my attention in talking to numbers of laymen that the general public thinks of spiritualism only in terms of mediums and seances, and that the average man does not seem to realize the suffering, losses, misfortunes, crimes, and atrocities of which it is the underlying cause and must hear the primary responsibility. During the more than 30 years in which I, Houdini, have been investigating spiritualism, I industriously collected all possible data on the subject, and in the thousands of clippings dating from 1854 to the present time, which are filed away in my library, bragging, there are hundreds which tell of crimes attributed to spiritualism. The byproducts of spiritualism are an AD BC thing for Jonathan and I. That was the world he was inhabiting. In the 70s, we see Uri Geller pop up, and then like Jonathan Edward, no one takes him seriously. He ripped off some old people, who cares? We watched him on TV for funsies. That isn't real damage to my society. Houdini and other magicians, I think he founded an entire, the Society of, or something like that, of other magicians to empower them to be like, dude, show people you can do it and make them question, is it real? We're wrapping up the last few chapters. Investigations-wise and otherwise, chapter 12. So this is the same thing we've already covered, so I don't want to retread ground too much. This is the idea how easy it can be to fool smart people. And Jonathan, you have some stuff like this. Not necessarily Dance Monkey, but if you could explain the framework of, there are some tricks that you do that I know are tricks, but you've structured them as if there's like a double, well, if I don't know what this is and you don't know what this is, then it must be science. You're kind of borrowing the language of the scientist. Can you explain like the writing or whatever?
Oh yeah, well, there's the pendulum work.
Perfect.
Right?
Yeah, I'll give you a one
good
shot, and then okay. So real quick, let's give everybody a second. So if you come to our show, I've got these now. These are cool. I'm not selling these. These aren't for sale yet. I'm just showing them off because I made 200 of them. I stuffed 200.
You want to buy one? You can't.
In a
stupid
envelope. I put 200 of these, and then the world shut down. But here's what they do. Okay, real quick, my version. Here's the history.
Yep.
We literally do it this way. This is cool. Okay, history and mystery. This is a Zune. Remember the Zune? It was an iPod before there were iPods. Here's what happened. This technology, I'm gonna compare it to the iPod era. So if you're under 20, this may be history to you. Before the iPod, there were a lot of MP3 players. They arguably weren't very good, though some were quite well designed. Then the iPod came along and blew everyone else out of the water. And this will relate to this, I promise. No one owned anything other than an iPod. And then the iPod was the whole market until it went away. You don't have one anymore, do you? You use your phone now, or Spotify, or whatever. iPod, nothing. No one else ever got a chance. The Zune 2 was actually quite good and well designed, but it was too late to the game. The iPod owned the entire market. I present to you the Zune 2 of spiritualism. Before the Ouija board, you had 100 ways to talk to the dead. This was one. Jonathan, you have the rapping hand thing in some of the shows.
Yeah.
There's a.
I'll go get it.
Okay, so a rapping hand. He's actually got one of these. It works similar to Ouija board, but there was cups and scrying bowls. Imagine just like reading tea leaves, throwing the bones, dice, playing cards, tarot cards. How do you want to speak to the dead? Well, there are a million ways to speak to the dead until the Ouija board comes out and scorched earth. Nothing else exists. This goes away. The hand goes away. The tea leaves go away. Ouija, or Ouija, if you said that way. Until 1910, 1915, nobody wants a Ouija board anymore. Market tanks. And now it's all Spotify. So we're going to play with this. You can make one of these right now. This is a necklace with a cool little healing stone on the end. But any piece of jewelry or a key on a piece of string will work. In the future, if you want to show your friends, make this something cool. Go on Amazon and get a skull for 50 cents or $2, or buy one of these at my show for $5. Get a piece of kite string or a bit of twine, make it look interesting. Do you see what? Look at this. Behold. I mean, it's clearly the spirits. It's obviously the spirits, just like with a Ouija board. So we'd ask questions, and then this is the Fox Sisters idea. Once for yes, twice for no. Or move when I say, who will I marry? Which boy will be my husband? And you start naming all the cute boys in your class, and the hand moves. It's going to be Kevin. I knew it'd be Kevin. Great for sleepovers. Now let's do, what is it? Stiff as a board, light as a feather. These are the fun games we'd play. Here's one, and now I'm going to play along at home as I give you a one-shot for you to demonstrate. And go.
Outstanding. So the idea is that if you have a necklace or just a weight on a string, this could even be a hex nut and some thread. It doesn't matter, because you are actually the trick, which is really neat, because this isn't really a trick. It is genuinely a demonstration of a thing that you do, which is super cool. So here's the thing. Is if the answer is yes, you imagine that it moves in a straight line back and forth, kind of like you're nodding your head yes. Now, don't intentionally swing it, but also don't actively stop it from swinging if it does. So just imagine yes, and imagine that it's moving straight back and forth, and it'll just go. Even without consciously trying to swing it, it will move. Now, no is swinging your head side to side, so imagine it goes side to side, and that indicates a negative answer. So then if you just concentrate on it and imagine it moving, it starts to move. Now, watching this from YouTube land, it looks like just some dude swinging a pendulum. But if you try this yourself, you'll feel how weird this is. Now, if it's unsure, it goes in a circle, kind of like that, kind of a mix of yes, a mix of no, who knows? So it's unsure, right? Now, another way of using a pendulum is, for example, if you had a playing card and you had a value, say it's a 4, you can use the pendulum as kind of a bell, right, with a glass. So you put it inside the glass, and then it starts to swing. 2, 3, 4, right? So you know that, okay, it's 4. So you can use the pendulum to tell numbers and, okay, what's that number letter in the alphabet? So you could spell things out. So it is laborious, but it can work, right? But again, it's more of it's Jonathan moving it. It's stuff that Jonathan already knows, so of course he's going to know the right thing to do, right? So one of the things I like doing is to kind of do a double-blind test version of pendulums using playing cards, which is just super handy kind of entropy creators. If you want randomness, a shuffle deck of cards will do you real good, right? So if we cut the cards a couple times, get different cards in different orders every time, right? So imagine we put this card off to the side, and I'll put the hand on it as well. And that way you'll know that there's no way that I can get at it or anything like that. All right. So we'll get some cards here, some of those, and some of these. Let's see. Yeah. There. Some more here. Yeah. Make kind of 4 even-ish piles. All right. Be handy. Now here's what's cool. Is that in every deck of cards, there are essentially twin pairs. For every 6 of hearts, there's another red 6, the 6 of diamonds. So they're more siblings than twins, but you get the idea, right? A 4 of clubs would match with the 4 of spades. If it was the 4 of clubs and a king of diamonds, that's way off, right? So the idea is this random card has a match somewhere in the deck. So the way that kind of dowsing works, which is pendulum work trying to find a certain thing, is that you would put the pendulum on the object, or it would be near the object in order to absorb its aura or mojo, whatever you want to call it, its essence, the ether of the object is basically it, right? So the pendulum is absorbing the nature of whatever that card is face down. So then the idea is you hold the pendulum over the stacks of cards, and the pendulum will be able to figure out, all right, so not there. So the pendulum should be able to figure out which one of the piles the sibling card would be in. All right, so we've got a back and forth. So that is yes there. And here we give it a second or two, and then it starts going, right? Now, if this were just me and nothing else and just what I know, there's no way for me to know which one of these piles it's in, right? So this is the kind of double blind. I don't know. You guys don't know. We're just swinging blind here, right? So this was the pile that it indicated yes. So move these over out of the way, and then here we go. So very quiet. All right, Tom, how many did you hear? 5?
5.
All right. So the pendulum says 5. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, and the 5th card down is that card. Right? You can see everything. There's no tricky sleight of hand stuff going on, right? So let's see. From the beginning, it was the 6 of hearts. Was the card that was the target card that we were shooting for, right? So the sister card to the 6 of hearts would be
the 6 of diamonds.
6 of diamonds, which would be a really good trick. It's the 10 of hearts.
Oh, there you go.
I have no idea why that didn't work. But you see, if it had worked, that would have been really impressive.
I think conclusive proof that Jonathan is not a fraud. That's real spiritualism you're watching right there.
Right. Now, if I were actually a good professional trying to rob you right now, it would be more of and you see, so, sometimes it doesn't always happen. It doesn't always work. And then you get them to double down, and then you hit them with the payoff.
Yeah, you have a way out.
Right?
I can tell you
because...
Oh, go ahead. Because what?
Yeah, I was just going to say that no sane person would fail that spectacularly, that publicly.
Right.
If that makes sense, right?
Yeah, that slate thing was awesome, though. Think about that.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's really cool because when you're watching you do it, and maybe it's just the black on black, it looks like you're just swinging a pendulum. But if you haven't tried this on your own at home, you really, maybe not now, go to the junk drawer, kite string and a key or whatever. Anything with this isn't very heavy. It's these little tiger's eye or whatever.
Right.
Once you get it moving a bit, it's legitimate. I'm not trying to move my hand.
Mm-hmm.
I'm moving my hand. I don't think Abe Lincoln showed up and is moving this rock. I'm moving my hand. But when your body works without you, not your heart beating or your breathing or blinking, parts of your body that are not normally autonomous suddenly, as I believe the book calls it, rebel against the body politic. It is deeply disconcerting. It is not a feeling most able-bodied people are that familiar with. And so that feeling is the same feeling you would have gotten, like I said, when the hand taps on a boy's name, or when you are doing tarot cards and I go, are you planning a trip in the future? And you go, oh my, I literally booked tickets to Italy this morning. That tingle you get up your spine, you can recreate this. And a real fun, by the way, a thing I did this as a news piece a while back in Detroit. Make one with your kids. Make a fun little trinket, and they can wear it as a necklace on Halloween. So make a big, spooky, scary, get a skull or whatever, goat with horns or whatever they're cool with, or a butterfly. And then it's just, mad creepy. Yeah, Sydney's like, tried it just now. Mad creepy, man. So
right? Because it feels like something else is doing it.
Yeah. And if you get a whole room of people doing it, it's super, super, super cool. Okay, last few chapters. And then we got a big finish. Oh, real quick, I got a few. Okay, this went really well. So take a screenshot. I got a few postcards left, and I got a lot of crap to do when those stamps come in. So there's your QR code, which just goes to the same exact freakshowtel.com/postcard if you want one. And then that's it. Yeah, if you know me, you don't have to worry about getting one now. I'll have them on me when I go on the road. I'll give you one. They're very cheap. But yeah, if you want one, here's your chance because they are about half gone, but still 50 and haven't even posted on social media yet. Only the 11 people here and the people on my mailing list even know these things exist. Okay, last few chapters here. So that's, you see the setup for Jonathan's trick there is a double-blind method. If I don't know what this card is, and you don't know what this card is, then only the spirits can know what this card is, which is clearly true.
Super effective, only the
as we saw.
Knew.
Yeah. And so now we get into, I'm going to skip chapter 14, What You Must Believe to Be a Spiritualist, only because it is written with Houdini's prism, and it's kind of dickish. It's kind of mean. And while I understand he's speaking specifically to these fraudsters and these assholes and these we all agree are terrible people who rip people off, he's casting a little wider net. There are also assholes who are magicians, and I don't call Houdini an asshole because he's a magician. So allowing for that, chapter 14 is fascinating in a historical context, and maybe one day in the future we'll all live in those times again. It's cyclical. May have to fight the good fight. The final chapter of his book is Magicians as Detectors of Fraud. And this is where we get to the end of the arc of spiritualism, which, by the way, this live broadcast is now much longer than our actual show. When I condense all of this down to about 40 minutes, I end on this idea because this starts in the really every human culture has a way to talk with the dead. When I define spiritualism, it defines an American phenomenon that happened right around before and then after the Civil War, starts with the Fox sisters, ends with Houdini. Houdini shut it down. Magicians get credit for shutting down, not a religion, shutting down fraud. Shutting down every Bernie Madoff out there cheating every little old lady out of her retirement. Houdini starts top of his game. Full theater, full theater, full theater. There's not an empty seat in the house. He's making movies, which are of dubious quality, but they're getting views. He's an aviator, the first man to fly an airplane in Australia. He's into a ton of hobbies, and he's number one at a lot of stuff he does. And he puts it all on hold. Imagine right now, Beyonce said no. Imagine Michael Jackson drops the Thriller album and then goes, you know what, I'm done, and walks away at the top of their game. And Houdini decides, I'm not doing any more magic shows. I am instead going to start busting these jerks. And I'm going to enlist every magician I know to help me. I'll create societies, but also I'll lead the way. He hangs up his spurs, as it were, as a performer of just magic and escape shows, and begins to do basically the idea of anything you can do, I can do better. I can do anything better than you, and I'm not using ghosts. So maybe they're all frauds. He takes a hardline tack, and he attacks from the stage, and he goes to their shows. The story I always tell in the Seance, and forgive me, you'll hear it again if you come see us live, is he would dress up as a character he called Mr. White. The photos look terrible. It looks like a high schooler playing an old man. He just tries to look like any other person. He was a rather well-built guy, and he had kind of a vaudevillian's posture to him. He was a lot of ego, our Houdini, and he was always on stage, in his opinion. Make it a little more nebbishy. Put on a hat. Every guy wore a hat in the theater at that time. Put on a wig, crappy little mustache. Sit center of the auditorium. Mr. White gets there early, so he gets the good seat. Not up front, dead center. In the middle of this medium on stage, claiming to contact the dead, suddenly, this little guy becomes a giant, stands up and with a loud booming voice pulls off his hat, his wig, and his mustache and yells, I am the great Harry Houdini. Everyone on earth knows who he is. And you are a fraud. He continues to berate you until you leave the stage. Who's going to drag him out? Now, I mentioned Michael Jackson and Beyonce. Imagine someone at that fame level. That's Houdini there. But let's picture more Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson stands up and says, I smell bullshit cooking. Can you bodily remove Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson from my theater? Because I can't. Harry Houdini is jacked, especially for his day. He regularly exercises and not known to fight, but he was a carny. I can't imagine he didn't occasionally take a little knuckle to the face. Yep. I'm not going to escort Beyonce or Michael Jackson out either. You're intimidated by fame. Now add that level of Hulkamania in 1983 is running wild, and here he is going, brother, I think you're crap. Okay, I just leave out the back door. I'm done, man. I'm not fighting Hulk Hogan. Harry Houdini shut these places down. And because of him, and because of every magician who helped him, and they really do get the credit here. Look, I'm a juggler. I'm a sideshow performer. I'm not a magician. I'd love if we were involved. The carnies helped not at all. In fact, we probably participated in ripping off the old ladies. If I'm being honest, some carnies definitely probably stole your jewelry in some sort of gypsy curse scheme. The magicians really did this. And as detectors of fraud, they've excelled. In our era, barely in my era, when I was a kid, Uri Geller creeps his ugly head up and starts doing the same horrible thing. Now practicing his religion, practicing ripping people off, cheating people out of money, making claims he couldn't verify. And your mentor and my hero, the amazing James Randi, who, just to give you some context here, not the level of fame, you don't know Michael Jackson, Beyonce, Amazing Randi, like you do Houdini. But back when there were 3 friggin' television stations and Happy Days was a #1 show, he was the magician on a 2-part episode. So now imagine if I were playing the carny on Game of Thrones all of season 4. You'd know my face. Amazing Randi was very famous. And in a kind of similar pivot, didn't exactly hang it up entirely, but added a whole new level to his performance of leveraging his fame to go on, say, the Merv Griffith show, the Dinah Shore show, the week after Uri Geller was on there and go, yeah, that was garbage and horse shit. Let me show you how it's done. And you've got a demonstration. I'm gonna let you do that because the string looks like he's moving the string on YouTube. I saw you do this, and it's genuinely. Let me big him up, ladies and gentlemen. This man does things no human can do. He sees things no man should see. He knows things no one can know. Behold, the incredible, the amazing Jonathan Pritchard.
Thank you. All right, so this is a staple from that time, got incredibly popular, and then just kind of fell by the wayside, but it is just really, really cool, which is there would be, just like seances, the try it at home version, because we couldn't get tickets, so we'll do the play at home version, which is sit around the table and hold hands, right? So this was kind of a whole party. People would do this, where you go grab some silverware, and you could make it look like it's rubber. Now, this may or may not read from Zoom because of the frame rate, but if you've ever seen the rubber pencil thing, it's exactly the same kind of optical illusion, right? But what's really neat is that you can see that it might look like one tine is slowly bending. I don't know if the lighting will catch it, but it looks like one tine is slowly bending. But it's just an optical illusion. It couldn't actually be bent because that would be impossible.
Hold it down a little bit. I'm zooming in. Put it above that cup. Yeah, there. Now we can. Holy
There
crap.
We go. Right? So there you go. So that's kind of how it works. So where's my frame? I don't want to go out of frame.
You're good. I'll keep you in frame. I'll tell you that because I've got control over the.
Beautiful. So this is kind of a way of ensuring that you notice what baseline is. All right, because one thing is, if you see something once, is that normal? I don't know. Right? Because I'll have to see if I see it again, then I'll know that it's normal. So it's really important to have kind of a baseline of what kind of normal looks like, right? Because if I were to put muscle into it or that kind of thing, you'd be able to see that, right? So the trick is that you're not using any muscly force. All you do is you imagine the energy going down your arms, through your hands, into your fingertip, and then you just lightly kind of rub right there on the neck of the spoon. Now, at first, nothing really happens, but then you can see I'm just very, very gently touching it. There's no muscle, no leverage or anything, but you can see the handle of the spoon is slowly bending upwards just a little bit, but it is definitely, definitely different from where it was to begin with. Now, you can see that it's a very subtle effect, and that's, again, why we have the normal. So you can see that this is a very large deviation from normal. And you could tell, like, there was no trying to put a hurting on it. It was just that way. So here, I know everybody thinks it's because it's some sort of acid on my fingers. Really not thinking that through, because my fingers are flesh. That would get eaten up before the metal does. So work on that theory. But the idea is that you can even kind of make the spoon bend without touching it. Like so. Which is now effectively a 90-degree bend in the spoon. So to me, that is just super wacky. And I actually got to do this for Buddhist monks. This sounds like a setup to a joke, and it's not. I was in college, skipped class for 3 days to hang out with them, and the Buddhist monks from Tibet, and got to have lunch with them. So we were in kind of near the end of it, and they hadn't used their spoon, so I asked to borrow their spoon, and it was essentially the same kind of deal, right? Where you just borrow the spoon, and I do this so you can hear the metal on glass. There's no way to fake that. Like if I were using a plastic thing, you would, oh, a hard plastic. Well, there goes my theory, Tom. Right? So yeah, the idea is that the spoon doesn't bend, you bend, right? So from 1999, The Matrix, there is no spoon. That's exactly the kind of the feel that you're going for, because without putting any kind of muscle into it, you're putting all of your imagination into it, and you just imagine that the spoon would be very soft and pliable. So it might come across that you can kind of see the spoon looks very soft and bendy, right? Because I'm just imagining that it is. So you could even imagine that you could move it kind of like a joystick, but that's not really it. But what's really cool is when you just imagine that it is so soft and bendy that it just can't keep its shape anymore. That's metal bending.
That's amazing. That is, and that reads on YouTube really well. Yeah, convincing people that it's real silverware, but come see the show live. It's real silverware. But the effect, it just looks like, yeah, the Wachowskis came in here and started editing us in post. It looks like you're seeing a special effect live. Now imagine that live in your living room or in a theater in the 1880s, 1910, 1920, and then again in the 1970s it comes back and starts playing. And this was a guy's entire talk about doing one trick and do it well. That's where he goes his entire career. Look at me, I can bend silverware. Therefore I have, and he didn't say ghosts, psychic abilities. Mm-hmm. We all have these powers. I've just trained them more than you. And I don't know why he's the guy from Despicable Me. But girls, come in here, look at my psychic powers, girls. That's what Randy had to fight, and Randy fought it by doing what Jonathan did, which is like, look, I can also do this, and I promise you, I didn't use any powers. I don't want to tell you how I did it, because that's no fun. That's not the game we're playing. But I promise, we're using nothing supernatural. Thank you for joining me on this,
Except these good
Jonathan.
looks, Tom.
There you go. Dashing charisma and BDE, as the kids call it. Thanks for joining me on this. I really appreciate it. My apologies to Ashley for taking up your entire night. Sorry, Ashley.
It's wonderful. I'm glad to talk to other human beings, and just cool to have live streams. Thank you guys for posting in there. I wasn't just texting people. Right. All the people I would text are on this call with me. So I was in the live chat hanging out. So that's really cool to watch.
Yeah, we appreciate your time and attention, as always. We appreciate you hanging out with us. Hopefully this relieves your boredom as much as it relieves ours. And then hopefully some of you are, like me, history nerds. And so some of what I learned in reading this book, I've now been able to kind of boil down and disseminate to you. And then Jonathan also hits points where that aren't in the book, different resources and stuff. Questions you've got, you can always leave them as a comment, or you probably are one person removed from us. You can find us on all kinds of social media and just send a message. When you get your postcard, please take a second. I don't care how. You can tag me, you can text me, you can messenger. I don't care how you do it. But let me know it arrived and you got it. That's all I really want to know. It's not even a publicity stunt so much. It's just a fun game for me to play. Almost like when you do ships in a bottle in school and then people will mail them back to you from wherever it is in the world. I grew up on the Gulf. Maybe not everyone did that. That doesn't work in the Great Lakes. It's all Canada. But in the Gulf, we would do that, and then it'd be really cool if, like, 6 weeks later, someone from Mexico, and this is also pre-email, I'm ancient, they'd send it back from someplace like near Honduras, and you're like, whoa, that Gulf Coast, that current's amazing. The world's a huge place. Isn't that amazing? And then come see us live. If you don't come see us live, go see something live once they open up the world. In the meantime, just keep your head down, stay safe, listen to the experts. If we've learned nothing from reading this book, we've learned that epidemiologists, virologists, and doctors, the C students, have the loudest mouths. Shut up. Let's let the honor students speak for a little while, shall we? That's how we get out the other side. The C students look pretty, put on makeup, and talk good. The ugly kids in the back of the class with no charisma, who nailed chemistry the first time, who killed it at calculus, and who went on to Harvard Medical School, yeah, maybe they don't look like Dr. Drew. Maybe they don't look like Ken and Barbie, but maybe they know what they're talking about. Just maybe. Just maybe. I'm full of shit and they're not. Thanks, man. I love you all. You guys have a good night. And I'll talk to you later, my friend.
Good night.
I appreciate your time, dude. I really appreciate this. This is a huge boon for me, and it's always an honor watching you perform. And I mean that, man. I'll tell you that off stage, too. It's always an honor to watch you perform. Thank you, sir. Good night.
Thank you.